I have a fear of failure. I needed a vehicle that would allow me to stand out and to be a thought leader. Did I think that the podcast would take me there? No.
Effective networking can change your life. If you want to master the art of networking and leverage it to reach your ambitions, you need to listen until the end of this episode. The cost of inaction is too high.
The more you increase your authenticity, the more you increase your visibility.
Today I'm talking with Rob Hanna, legal community builder, host of Legally Speaking podcast, and master networker. I do want to play devil's advocate though here. How do you do that at scale?
And I believe you're only one relationship away from changing your life. They're going to email that to 7,500 people, and I'm in the races. I've just turned up. I'm no longer the guy cold calling off the phone that nobody's heard of.
He has essentially created a business around networking and community building. And today I'm picking his brain on networking strategies, networking efficiency, and networking proficiency. Rob is literally telling us his secrets to networking. And because of this, I think this is going to be such a valuable episode for you, no matter whether you're a law student, you're working in law, or you've quit law and you're doing something else, or perhaps you're a legal consultant. What is the thinking behind you branding yourself as a community builder?
Giving you all my secrets on this, Holly, I tell you.
That's brilliant. You're literally a professional networker.
Nothing I'm telling here is revolutionary, but you have to understand why you're doing it, what the goal is, because you don't want to be a busy networker. And by the way, none of this was easy.
So, Rob, please tell me what you think the power of networking through podcasting does, especially for the legal sector. At the end of the day, podcasting is networking. It's having conversations with people. It's finding people that you want to talk with and creating deep, meaningful entertainment, basically, for the listeners.
Could I give a personal example? Because I think it potentially would resonate with lawyers or legal people listening to this. So I set up my main company, KC Partners, in 2016. We're a legal talent solutions and content creation firm. At the time, we were very much just a legal recruitment firm. And we obviously recruit lawyers for law firms. And look, the reality is nobody cared that I set up a legal recruitment firm. You know, there are established competitors out there, reputable competitors that had databases, entrenched relationships, you name it. And so when I was thinking about, well, what's going to be my business development strategy here as an entrepreneur and as a recruiter? And I looked around and I thought, well, what's new? Obviously, we're in an AI generation now. So this is a little bit dated, but there are some messages in here that I hopefully help your audience. I needed a vehicle that would allow me to stand out and to be a thought leader. And so my strategy was, why don't I become the first legal recruitment company in the world to set up a podcast? And that's what we did in 2019. I gave that story before. And so rather than me going out there and pitching jobs to lawyers and making it all about me, because my big ethos when it comes to networking is you should lead with value. Okay. Start the relationship on a value proposition, because I believe everyone has a value. Everyone can give value. And I also believe you're only one relationship away from changing your life, be that a life partner, be that a mentor, be that an employer, whatever. And I have a saying that's NSN, never stop networking. Even if you look at the top billionaires, you look at the top CEOs, you look at the top entrepreneurs, top lawyers, they're continuously networking the rainmakers because it's that important, in my opinion. So coming back to the story, so the podcast was that tool. Now, this is the thing that I think was quite unique that got us set up. Rather than ringing up a law firm partner and saying, hi, my name's Rob, I'm sat here with a phone, never done legal recruitment before, I've done other industries. Can you give me some jobs to recruit for? No, we use X so-and-so and so. And by the way, don't ever call me again if this is just all about you. Where's the relationship? I didn't want to do that. That wasn't a smart way to build relationships. It wasn't authentic. You know, I'm a big believer in being authentic when you're building relationships. So I was like, Hi, ex-partner. My name's Rob. I'm the host of a brand new show called the Legally Speaking Podcast. It's the first of its kind. It's this new form of medium. Because remember, back in 2019, podcasts were not that. People were getting excited. People, this kind of going on Riverside and jumping. This wasn't a thing. This was like this is like the AI situation now, right? In terms of new, exciting, different. Said, I can see you're looking to sort of hire these people. Why don't we get on a call and actually do a 30-minute podcast? I'll ask all about your career, all about your journey, bring that human side to it. And that'll be your best advert for bringing people to your firm, because it's no longer B2B, B2C anymore. It's H to H. And by the way, for you giving me half an hour of that time, I'll make sure that this is reproduced in so many different ways that it's better than your marketing team, be that in terms of what I call a WAV strategy, written, audio, video. So I'll create video graphic assets for you. I'll create audio clips for you. I'll create transcript for you. I'll turn this into blog posts. I'll put it into a newsletter. And in time, this will be in 5,000 cities around the world, and you'll be able to repurpose it time and time again to elevate your status. And I'll make sure I do the best job of it, because day in, day out, I know how to ask the right question as a qualified recruitment consultant for the last 15 years. Do you have that 15 minutes to do all of this for you? It's very hard for them to say, do you know what, Rob, this sounds awful. Do you know what? And by the way, at that point, I've not said, I want your business. I've said, this is what I'm going to do to you that's going to help you. And I'm going to give it absolutely everything in that interview. I'm going to be the best interviewer I can. I'm going to bring the best energy. I'm going to be the best advert of me, because that's the power of the personal brand. And so I built relationships off the back of it. And then it starts snowballing. And, we start getting big names. We then start, we start bringing in real entertainment when, we had the lockdowns, and then Tiger King was the most downloaded episode, downloaded thing in Netflix. We brought Carol Baskin in and managed to network ferociously to get someone like that. We hijacked the systems, the podcast airwaves. And then we start bringing in Sky Sports people. Then we start bringing in other factors, all linked to the area of law. And then it becomes its own sort of media thing. And obviously then we've built on sponsorships, and it's become its own kind of revenue generating stream. But I needed a strategy to start my business. So I guess if you're sat there as a law firm partner trying to build your practice, you're sat there as a lawyer trying to stand out, think of, where are you strongest? Is it written, audio, video? If it's audio and video, then podcast is a great way for you to start thinking about getting out there and building thought leadership, networking, connecting, leading with value. And then as a result of that, amazing things will happen.
That is crazy, literally. I genuinely think that you're an absolute genius, because that is ahead of its time, like forward thinking.
Yeah.
Like you say, back in 2019, I know for sure that I didn't even know what a podcast was at that point. So you were already ahead of the time, and you were thinking, how do I network, but in a very clever way? And that is clever. Do you think that now, when you look back, are you genuinely surprised at how far the podcast has taken you? Or did you foresee what has happened now with your podcast back then in 2019?
Honest answer is no. I would love to come on here and say yes, because I'm probably one of the most, I'm very ambitious, I'm very driven, I'm very committed. I have huge dreams. But if I actually take a step to think back that, we have a legal tech unicorn, 100 million annual recurring sponsor, legal tech. I'm very personally friendly with that CEO who flies me out to their conference every year to be a leading media partner, to have a seat at the table at some of these big brands and events, and to have the network that I've been able to build, and with the Law Society and all these credible organizations. Did I think that the podcast would take me there? No. And that's the beautiful thing about podcasting. There's so many different directions it can go. I've just joined Pod School, which is run by two of my friends who run podcast recruitment podcast agencies rather. And they kind of use school games, which is blowing up at the moment. And that's just a mastermind. And the thing is, with podcasting, I always come as a student. So originally it was my business development tool I mentioned to you. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of transitioned into a bigger thing. Because originally I was like, great, the ROI was the placements of candidates. Then actually one of my mentors said to me, Rob, no, you're thinking about everything wrong. You need to look at the COI. And I was like, what the hell's COI? He's like, it's the cost of inaction. I was like, ooh. What's the cost of inaction of you not potentially thinking about other things for this podcast that it could do for you on top of your main lead flow? Yeah, you're right. He said, why don't you think about sponsorship routes? Why don't you think about paid community routes? Why don't you think about other ways that you can get higher ticket speaking gigs? Why don't you think about ways that all of these things could come to you, and don't just think on that ROI? And that opened my mind up. And that's why we've built Discord communities. We've built all of these different, I'm a big believer in branding myself as a legal community builder because it's become its own kind of media entity. So I had no idea it would come to this, but this is the beautiful thing. If you're show up, willing to be consistent, willing to back off the naysayers. And by the way, none of this was easy. So if I have to be careful with what I say with this, but not everyone will share your vision and what you're trying to do. So you might be in a law firm right now where you say, I've just listened to Holly's podcast with this guy called Rob. It's amazing. We need to set up a podcast. Like, this is going to be the number one thing that's going to help us get out there. And they may get shut down flat and be like, no, there's chargeable hours billing here. What's the point in that? We've already got our existing clients. Like, there's absolutely no need for any of this. This is just not a good use of my time. Well, the reality is you need to make sure that you have enough information to re-educate that particular person. Or if they're not going to be re-educated, then maybe that's not the room that you should be in anymore. So I've had to believe in what I think is the right place to go. And so along the way, certain people haven't shared the vision. They couldn't see the big picture. They wanted the ROI on day one. Whereas you hadn't heard of me probably 12 months ago, maybe 18 months ago. But for that 4 years behind the scenes, grafting, pushing, building, networking, showing up, doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews and thousands and thousands and thousands. There's no overnight success here. This has been ferocious work, but then you start getting the seat at the table and all the things that you think that you would hopefully hope for. But I had no idea it would get to this, no idea. And the good thing is, Holly, between you and I, we're still just getting started.
I've got so many questions for you, honestly. Like, this is just, I don't know, it's making me excited. Like, I just think that I just love the way that you think about things, especially in the entrepreneurial mindset that you have. I think it's so clever, so incredible. I want to ask you, so you've mentioned that with networking, you need to add value. You need to start with value. What else would you say to people? Let's say, because people will look at you and think, wow, you're a master networker. You've met hundreds of people through your podcast, and not only that, through other means, through LinkedIn, you built community, you've got your business, you've got all sorts of different avenues, and people probably think, this is overwhelming. You've got hundreds, if not thousands of people that and yet how can people start off networking? Let's say they've never networked before and they want to build maybe a community or maybe get to know a lot of different people like you have. Where on earth do they start except for leading with value?
Great question. So I guess, what are my networking tips? Nothing that I'm going to tell anyone here is remotely hard, but it's not easy. So what do I mean by that? When I say be authentic, it's not hard, but some people may have insight. I think that's a really key trait to being a successful networker, particularly if you're putting yourself out there. Be authentic, not hard, but it's not easy. What do I mean by that? You may have imposter syndrome. You may have fear of what people may think about me, or should I be doing that? Should I be truly authentic? I say to you, yes, because the more you increase your authenticity, the more you increase your visibility. If you go on LinkedIn, I'll give you an example. If you read a story from someone and they've talked about a failure or something personal that's happened to them, and they've got a photo of them, and it's really kind of getting you emotionally involved, that post will win the race every day, versus you putting an advert out saying, hi, I'm looking to hire somebody. If you're a legal recruiter listening to this, or a competitor, talk about the challenges that you've had, authentic. Actually, the time you thought you were going to give up, you weren't good enough to be a legal recruiter. Lawyers didn't respect you enough. But then share the wisdom, the learning along the way. So people are craving authenticity at the moment. So I think the best way to network, if you're start thinking, okay, lead with values here, how can I story tell and get a message out there so people can find a connection with me? And the best way to do that is to be authentic. So I really, really encourage people to just start and just be obsessed with progress, right? You're not going to get major wins after day one, day two, day three, but you might get an extra bit of progress. It might be someone you haven't spoken to for 4 years just shared your post, or actually you got a DM from someone who actually potentially could be 2 or 3 degrees of separation for someone that I would like to network with, whatever it is. But I'd say that's really, really important that you master the art of being your true human self, because there's so many people that are living a lie, and we're past that generation now. So the more you can story tell, the more you're going to connect with people. I did a LinkedIn audio with Gary Vee. A lot of people will know Gary, and my friend Mitch Jackson, he actually His son works for VaynerMedia. And I said to Gary, like, what are top 3 tips when it comes to social media? He said, post what you care about. Don't care what people think about you and just get on with it. And I was like, okay, very easy for you to sat here, probably one of the most followed people, personal brands, but it's true, right? So find what you're passionate about. So for me, I'm genuinely passionate, but the question I think people should ask is like, why? So why am I sat here brutally doing a podcast? Why did I set up a podcast? Why did I bother to set up a legal recruitment business? Like, what gets me out of bed every day? And the reality is I want to create a legacy that my grandfather did, because he ran one of the most successful law firms of his generation in the 1950s. And I refuse to let that legacy die at his generation. I want to be the extension of that, but in a tech-enabled era. So that's my accountability piece. That's my why. I want that family name to carry on through. So when you're thinking about networking, you're going to have to find a system, a why so strong that it's going to overcome the self-doubt, overcome the naysayers, overcome the people saying, why are you wasting 15 minutes of your time here going to that event? Why are you doing that on this LinkedIn audio? Why are you doing that? And the reality is, if you can get that why so strong that you want to deliver on it, then you'll be able to push through all of that, because none of what I'm saying is hard, but it's not easy.
You're so right. And without that why, without that purpose, it's hard to pull through.
Can I give you another tip? And I can't believe I didn't say this. It's the easiest thing for networking. I call it the work warm analogy. Who do you know who can introduce you to someone you don't know? Okay. So for example, Holly, we were cold contacts probably 2 weeks ago. Now I would say we're very warm friends. If anything, that human connection, we've met each other. We've done content collaborations together. We've given value to one another. We've supported one another. That relationship warm. Leverage it. Like, Holly, look, I've just looked through one of your guests, actually. They look amazing. We would love to get them on, because our content theme for Legally Speaking Podcast in season 8 is exactly that. I have nothing. I can't find any commonality, any rapport angles. Would you be ever so kind to do an introduction for me? By the way, I've just left you 5 stars reviews on your podcast and wrote a very exceptionally post about how I enjoyed my experience working and delivering on your show. Ask, value, give. Right? So again, just simple things, but who do you know who can introduce you to someone you don't know? Very powerful tool. It's just working warm. Simple way to get started with networking.
That's brilliant. That's such a good way. You're literally a professional networker. Like, this is incredible.
Maybe once or twice, yeah. But it's but like I say, nothing I'm telling here is revolutionary, but you have to understand why you're doing it, what the goal is, because you don't want to be a busy networker. I see a lot of people that are very busy networking, but for what goal? Where are you driving that? What's the message? What's the story you're trying to sell? Because remember, facts tell, stories sell. Back to that point around the LinkedIn post, they're storytelling, right? And the better you get at storytelling, the more likely you're going to draw people in who's going to trust you, because you're letting them know. And by the way, there's a big difference between personal and private. Because people say to me, Rob, I'm not going to put anything on LinkedIn. Nothing personal to me. I was like, do you mean nothing private to you? They're like, yeah, I don't want to talk about certain things. So that's very private to me. But I was like, so there are certain personal things that you could share with your community that will get you to build trust and thought leadership. Like, yeah. So again, people overthink certain things. Having a personal brand doesn't mean you lay everything out on the table. So some things will always remain private and people will respect that. But we're in 2024. People want to know who they're dealing with. They don't want to be dealing with just someone that they have no connection with. That's just the reality of business now. Never used to be that way, but now it matters.
I'm on a mission to help lawyers realise that there's another way. They don't have to practice law in the traditional way. We're not all made to work in an office. Some people want to travel and work. Some people want to be their own bosses. Others want a side business. So with this, I want to ask you for 2 favours. Please leave a review on whichever podcast platform you're using. And secondly, please share this episode with at least one friend who you think would benefit from it. What is the thinking behind you branding yourself as a community builder?
Because I think it's the only thing that's going to win moving forwards. Everything will eventually be AI driven, and we're already seeing that. And we're going to lose more and more humans in jobs. We're going to lose more and more human connection. And so the way you find connection is by building community. And the way I think you can generate revenue in the future is through having a community. be that subscription-based services, which I think legal services should be moving more and more to, be that through, premium value-add content, be that through proximity to one-on-ones. Someone could say, Holly, you come into your community, they get a one-to-one or a one-to-many model where they can have an hour of your time to talk about podcasting strategy. I think community is the key currency of 2024 and beyond. And firms that ignore that, companies that ignore that, you're not going to have an identity. Ultimately, I think identity is important, and people are craving to be part of somewhere where they could be seen, heard, and valued. Like little things we used to do, we would write, if people would leave us a rating review on the podcast, we would shout them out at the end of the show and thank them personally. I'd personally give them a shout out and a thank you because I want them to feel seen, heard, and valued. Yeah, I'm a big advocate for community. And the overarching thing is it comes back to my why, right? So my grandfather left this legacy in an offline world. I want my daughter to be able to kind of, when I pass, one day go online, or maybe it's in her Oculus or whatever it is in the world that she's in at that time, and say, do you know what? I can search what my dad did. My dad did good. And all these people said good things. Because at the end of the day, none of us have anything other than legacy, right? We're here 100 years max, probably. It's no time. We have no time. And so that's why I think a lot of people, they procrastinate, they overthink, and they get stuck in just that world. And whereas me, I have a big growth mindset. I'm a big advocate. Go out there and do it. Screw it, just do it. You can just go out there and make things happen.
I didn't know the power of networking through podcasting until I had a podcast.
About my friend who helped me get started and came and did the brainstorming session. He runs a recruitment podcast. And so this is the biggest hack for anyone on why I think you should be a guest on shows and collaborate. So, there's two things I didn't actually let you know, which again is very strategically driven. He said to me, by the way, Rob, the best way to create a show? I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about it on social media. He was like, no. I was like, oh. He says, that's a great way. This is 2019. So you couldn't get TikTok. You couldn't get 4 million views from doing something funny, right? This wasn't there at that time. It wasn't giving you that organic growth. It wasn't putting the power in the creator at that time. He said, you need to be a guest on other people's shows. I was like, but not anybody's shows. You need to think about what's your topic of influence. I was like, what's the topic of influence? It's like, well, that's the pain point you're wishing to serve when you're talking to your audience. So for me, it's legal careers, right? The Legally Speaking podcast is a legal careers focus. Why? Because eventually my funnel leads them to the legal recruitment, right? It's something in and around. So I went on his show, which was established, had an engaged audience, which is all around recruitment. So he does everything for me, creates the brand assets, creates this, does this, does this. I put a simple call to action, like I'll probably do at the end of this episode. You'll be like, Rob, where can people go and find out more about the Legally Speaking podcast? And I said, I'm starting a brand new show. It's releasing next week. We co-timed the time he would release his to his audience with my episode launching. So that was one strategy. Guest on episodes, bounce that audience, hijack, that is called audience hijacking, into your community. And then with your first guests, I invited the London Young Lawyers Group, my good friend Ollie Haddock, who now runs the Careers Edit, fabulous chap, and Nicola. They were both the co-founders of the London Young Lawyers Group way back when. I invited them as my first guest. Why? Not only because we're friends, they had data. What do I mean by data? They had a database of 7,500 lawyers from 0 to 7 PQE, my ideal recruitment market, right? So I bring them on, invite them on. Where the heck are they going to send this show? Because it's novel. They've just been on a podcast. We've taken photos, videos. They're going to email that to 7,500 people. And I'm in the races. I've just turned up. I'm no longer the guy cold calling off the phone that nobody's heard of. I'm the guy that's just released this awesome podcast that's new, that's innovative, that's quirky, that's hijacked 2 audiences right at the start. I'm getting inbound leads. I'm getting conversations. I'm getting noticed. So strategically think about your guests. Go on other people's guests, hijack audiences, get that data, because data is the new gold. We know that, and then you can grow. So that was a couple of pieces of strategy that I also built in when I started, and it worked fantastically well.
You're just full of it. You're just full of all the brilliant business development strategies. It's incredible to hear it. How do you strategically think about who you need to be networking with?
Very good question. Well, the thing is, at the moment, I said it before, you're only one relationship away from your from changing your life. So I'm actually in talks at the moment. I'm very forward facing, right? So I'm running, and I hope it's okay for me to say, but I'm running the Great Big Legal Offsite, which is an event that's coming up. I'm proud that I've been able to get Piers Linney, who's now become a good friend, actually, who was a former Dragon's Den investor and lawyer, in my network. And he runs a company called Implement AI. I'm always looking for people that are kind of, the famous Wayne Gretzky quote, if people have heard it, Wayne doesn't skate to where the puck is, he skates to where the puck's going, right? And so for me, I'm always trying to network with where the puck's going. And so I was networking with Piers and his company Implement AI before AI became a buzzword. And then as a result of getting in those networks, I'm surrounding myself with people who are running progressive companies. I mentioned Jack Newton, CEO of Clio. I learn from him every time. I did an interview with him, fabulous entrepreneur, what he's been able to build, the first legal tech unicorn in the world. That network, that brain, that way of thinking, that entrepreneurial thought are the people that I want to be around. And similarly, their COO, Ronnie, used to be ex-Uber and helped really scale Uber. These are people that I come to the room as the complete student. I ask them open questions, tell me, describe to me, explain to me, and I shut up and I listen. And then I use that knowledge to then try and network with the types of companies and startups that I want to be. So I mentioned I'm in discussions at the moment with probably one of the most exciting, in my opinion, legal tech companies, which would like me to bring me on board as a investor and board advisor. So then I start attracting the types of things and businesses that I think are going to be the future businesses. Through the types of people that I network with. So the answer to your question is I want to be around the people that are looking forwards, not looking back and resting on their laurels. And I think a lot of that in the legal world still happens. I think a lot of that is still around billable hours. A lot of that is still about dated culture. A lot about is that, well, I've got my clients now. Why the heck would I change? And listen, when I listened to Piers, who came onto my podcast, the Dragon, he said simply, Rob, we've got to look at it as a value pyramid. And what do I say? What do you mean by a value pyramid? He's like, the level of service providing doesn't matter if you're a doctor, doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, doesn't matter if you're insurance, doesn't matter what you are. Unless you are moving up this value pyramid with your service offering, AI will eat your lunch. And so you're seeing that now. We're seeing it with sort of paralegal document review. This is all basic stuff. This stuff is only going to get better and better and better and better and better. And so unless you're willing to look forward and network with the futurists, if you like, and the people that are looking forward, or re-educate or open your mind to educating yourself, then you really do stand the risk of potentially being redundant. That's how strongly I feel about this. And I'm not sending out any fear signals. And by the way, I'm no expert in any of this, but what I am saying is if you keep doing, nothing changes and nothing changes. Mm-hmm. So if you keep doing what you've always done, then don't expect to be successful in this future-proof world that we're going. And that's why we're talking all about that at my event in a week or so's time.
You're right. It's about looking forward and thinking about where the future is going to be taking you and moving with that wave, because otherwise, as you say, you'll just be left behind. Just based on what you've just mentioned to me, what happens if people are contacting you and they're not necessarily the people that you want to be networking with or connecting with, and you only have a certain amount of time, right? You want to be focusing that time on networking with the people that you want to be surrounded by, right? How do you deal with that? Like, how do you not let people down, but do you know what I mean?
Simple. And I actually I told you this off air. I said, I'm going to make sure that I strategically answer these questions in a way that this will be a great piece of signposting content for people in my community, right? I can't go back to all the DMs. I have autoresponders which push people into my community. So if someone sends me a message on LinkedIn, it'd be like, hey, I get thousands of messages daily. But by the way, you can join my community here. It gives you access to free resources, better chance of connecting with me. So I never just leave people in the lurch. I have good responses and I have good signposting things that can allow people to do this. But this is why I come on these podcasts. I've got a PDF 1-page document, all the podcasts I've got on. Someone says, I've got a question about this. Hey, go to timestamp 15 when I spoke to Holly Cope about this. I give you exact answer. Autoresponder, right?
Brilliant.
So I have signpostings, or I have podcasts, I have articles, I have resources. I'm a content creator. All of this saves me time. And that's, I gave you back that example of the partner of the law firm. You give me 30 minutes of your time, I'll give you content for life. And that's the other thing. Make sure whenever you come on a content, do stuff, it's evergreen. What I mean by evergreen content is content that won't date. So loads of people started podcasting COVID, started talking about COVID. Very irrelevant now, most of that content. So it's important you think about that from a content strategy point of view. But coming back to, people who get in touch that aren't right for you, I also think always be open-minded. Just because someone may not necessarily be right for me now, like, give me all my secrets on this, Holly, I tell you. Again, the only reason the last few years have got good for me, I've been a nobody for a long time, like a really long time. My company is 8 years old. It's only the last 2 to 3 years I've really had a seat at the table. LinkedIn, Thomson Reuters, all these brands, unicorns. None of that was happening in 2016. But what I noticed was a lot of my competitors were focusing on the now. So coming back to Wayne Gretzky, I was like, I know my future lawyers are on Instagram. I know my future partners are going to be on social media. I know they're going to want to listen to podcasts. They're going to be on YouTube. So I played the long game. I want my customer lifetime value, to be from NQ to partner. So I don't place you once, I place you for life. And that's my message to people. It's like, I build a relationship, but how can I build a relationship with you? I need to give you content vehicles. I need to give you thought leadership. I need to stay connected to you because I can't pick the phone up every day to you and say, hi, how are you doing? How can we stay in touch? But also, you're not going to be looking for a job every 5 minutes. So again, I went to where the puck is going, the future generational talent, waited my time, gave them content, built community, and now I get inundated and I get the referrals. I get the quality of what I want. So I built the kind of people that I want to network with that come to me through that strategy. And one thing I do want to stress though, and sorry, I'm kind of going in tangents here, but hopefully this is valuable. I listened to an interview recently with Jeff Bezos, obviously owner of Amazon. And he said, we're getting it all wrong. And I go, I was listening to that going, okay. Everyone's talking about the buzzwords, this, that, and the other. He says, the change. He says, why don't businesses also really think about the things that won't change? So he gave the example. He says, I can't imagine in 10 years that people are going to want to pay more for their products at Amazon and wait longer to receive them. In the next 10 years, he can't imagine a world where that would be a case. So then I thought to myself, in my world, the legal recruiting world, I can't imagine in the next 10 years, clients are going to want to pay more for me to find them the lawyers and wait a longer time for them to get them. So whilst we're all thinking about moving forward, doing this, that, and the other, think about the constants that potentially are going to stay constants and how you can get obsessed about solving that problem on top of bringing all new technologies and new processes in. And then I think you're going to have a very future-proof practice of law, business, whatever it might be.
I think throughout this conversation, a lot of common themes have popped up for me in terms of what you're saying, not just about the connections and networking and community, but if we go deeper than that, which is you mentioning that you have a growth mindset. And I think that this plays a big, big role in your ability to network and create community so well that, in the way that you do. How do you create that growth mindset and be so consistent? Like you say, it took you years to get to where you are now. It's many years in the making. You're not an overnight success. How do you keep on going day by day by day, being so consistent and pushing without doubting yourself?
But I have a fear of failure. And so, it's so important that I remember, and the why is that strong. It comes back to that. It's like, I had the audacity to take my grandfather's name, his reputation he built in the 1950s. His father died when he was 8. He funded his own law school. He went there. He made stuff happen, came from a very working class family, and he built one of the best, law firms of his generation. Yeah, he hired great people and this, that, and the other. There's no way I'm not going to have the respect to give everything. And that means some days I'm going to get knocked down. Most days, most hours, there's things going wrong. I'm putting out fires, problems are happening, things are happening. But it's that fear of failure. I cannot let that happen because this is bigger than me. This isn't about me. This is a bigger thing. And that's what keeps me coming back time and time again. And this is why so many startups, so many businesses, so many things fail. They don't have enough passion. They don't have enough grit because they don't have a big enough meaning for why they're doing it. And so it's really, really important that sticks up. The other thing, which I haven't talked about, which is so important when it comes to networking, is the fortune is in the follow-up. So as good as I've given all these case studies, how did any of those reply immediately or straight away? You've got to find, please, when it comes to network, do never, ever circling back on this. Just wanted to see if you saw this last message. I can guarantee you people saw it. There was not enough value in that message. So whatever you do today, remember this. When you're following up, because fortune's in the follow-up, do not use any of those. Use new news. So what do I mean by that? Maybe you've reached out to a law firm because you want some work experience. Yeah. So you're a law student. Let's just take a law student or a lawyer. You're looking to try and get your own job. You don't need a recruiter. You want to do it directly. You've wrote someone custard pie, nothing. And by the way, I wouldn't leave it a week. I would leave it like within 72 hours. Think of a strategic angle, how you can follow up. So let's say LinkedIn. This is where LinkedIn's your friend. You can go on the homepage on LinkedIn. You can see the LinkedIn news section. You can see what's trending and what's happening on the platform in real time. What is the real conversation? Let's just say you've written to a Magic Circle partner for a corporate job and they've not replied. And then you've just seen Asda and Tesco merge in the world's biggest supermarket merge of all time. These were the law firms that were instructed. This were the fees, this and this. Hey, partner, I see that you actually work on retail in the M&A space and have recently been doing this, this, and this. Wanted to share this interesting article for you. I thought it might be quite interesting. There's also this link to this particular thing that I thought might be quite useful for your practice and potentially, any future hires or things you might be thinking about. These are my thoughts on this particular merger and acquisition as well. Would love to get your thoughts. Now, I've actually not given the best example there, but the point being is WIFM, what's in it for me? The end receiver. You've gone out of your way to get in their world, understand what they do, who they are, what makes them ticked, used real-time information to then try and build a relationship and lead with value. And maybe they've been too busy, they didn't even see that. Maybe that just went live 2 hours ago. They haven't seen this huge M&A deal. This might be a great thing. Or actually, a better way is, I see you do this. I would love to write a blog for you for free that you could post. Would you allow me to ghostwrite this for you? So again, you're thinking of different ways to kind of, it's like the Gary Vee jab, jab, hook, right? You're giving people that jab, 2 pieces of value to eventually then hook them. So again, just ways of thinking about when you go to network, always think of new news, don't follow up horribly, use something that's going to be valuable to them. And in your first pitch, ensure it's valuable to them. That's going to be show they're in their world. So another example, you said to me before, Holly, Rob, how when people come to you and they're not right, okay, I will give someone, if they're not right, a chance if they get the pitch right, because it shows they've taken the time. And by the way, they don't even need to be good to get the pitch right now. They could literally scrape off a few links off the internet, whack it in an AI automated ChatGPT, research Rob Hanna extensively as if I'm a prospective law student, write the best crafted, sounding like this, value driven to him, give me a prompt, right? So you've got AI, your friend, that could do it in 2 seconds. It's just lazy if you can't get someone really targeted now to buy on what you're looking for. If someone comes to me and says, hey, Rob, I see you host a Legally Speaking podcast. I really enjoyed that episode you did, actually, that Legal Tech Talk series. Congratulations, by the way, on being the exclusive sponsor there. I love that episode with Holly Cope. Holly really sort of resonated with me. That sort of format is great. I would love to invite you for a 5-minute interview to talk more about that season. Because I noticed also you've been, I saw a post about you being in the top 10. Anything I could do, would you like me to share this with my audiences for you? Maybe give you a rating and review. Wow, this girl is hammering me with value. They're hammering me with value. I'm like, how on earth can I ignore this person? They're only a law student. I'm not going to place them for 4 years, but they're finding an angle. They're finding a way to get my attention, because attention is the currency that we all want. And so that's where I think you need to be better. If you're sending out generic, vague messages, not hitting people, you go and listen to Stephen Bartlett. He replies to people that get super specific. Remember, specific is terrific. One of my mentors taught me that. The more specific you can get to that person's world and to help them, the more likely you're going to connect, network with them and build a relationship.
Wow, that is so valuable. Such valuable advice that, and I 100% agree with you. I do want to play devil's advocate though here. How do you do that at scale? If you're wanting to network with people, that could be a full-time job, researching people and sending up follow-ups and really specific.
Create. That's what social media is. You have no excuse. You can set up if you have access to the internet, you have access to the world at your tips. You can go to LinkedIn, over 1 billion people on that platform, right? World's largest professional networking site. Less than 50% of people create on there. You don't need to even be the best creator, but how can you get your message, your voice, and get out there and get there en masse? Is that the other thing you can do? And I alluded to this before, is collaboration is domination. So let's say you want to get your message out there. You want to target people of a topic of influence, your people who have an industry voice, who have a following. So let's use the example with me again. Rob, I see you've got X amount of this, done X amount of that. I would love to do this for you. Okay, if I do this for you, will you do this for me, right? Again, it's a typical form of value exchange. Make the value so high on the offering, and they'll be like, Rob, could you just share this with your network and tag me if I do this, and this? What are you doing? You're hijacking my audience. So to get on scale, you want to collaborate. and you want to do content collaborations, or you want to do work-related collaborations and hijack that audience. So that's a great way to grow. So I always talk about collaboration as domination. So really kind of think about that and then create with people. So find out go on, your industry. Let's say it's corporate law. Who are some of the most influential voices in corporate law online right now or in the media? You can use AI for a lot of that. You can find those people, research those 10, get in their world, get value to them, because their network is going to be huge. You can 10x your kind of reach through doing that. I gave the example of the London Young Lawyers Group. I didn't go and find 7,000 emails to kick off my show. I found the people who had the 7,000 emails to kick off my show. That's where strategic thinking comes in, and not just being kind of, I'm going to do this, that, and you've got to be that good. You've got to be that good, because I was looking, we're battling in the Apple careers charts. Like, we are doing everything we can. We're chucking out episodes daily at the moment. Like, we're looking on the back end. We're tweaking episode titles. We're tweaking thumbnails. We're tweaking. But that's what the Diary of the CEO. The reason people know about the Diary of the CEO is they have about 400 different graphics, and they choose one: the right camera shot, the right smile, the right glimpse, the right. Like, that's the world that we're in now in terms of kind of getting that 1% game. So it's really, really important when you're thinking about things that the people you want to target, you go all in and make sure you make a very good first impression, because it's very easy to make a bad first impression. It's very hard to cover that bad impression off with future follow-ups. So try and make that first impression the absolute best version of you.
I just want to ask you a final question. You mentioned to me that you get so many messages. Is there something that people ask you a lot about that you would like to answer as a question now, or something that someone needs to know from you that a lot of people ask you about that you can literally just say now?
Well, firstly, that's very kind of you, and that's why you're a fabulous host, because you put your guests first. And I've really enjoyed it. I felt very comfortable, and it's been lovely. A lot of people ask me questions about LinkedIn. How can I improve my LinkedIn profile? How have you built up this following? How have you been able to do these collaborations? Like, how can I make my LinkedIn profile stand out to future employers when I'm making applications? And so what I say is this: that is precious digital real estate. I don't really care about CV anymore. Yes, CVs are there and video interviews are there, but where are most people going to find you if you're on the job search, if you're not necessarily working with an agent? But let's just say you're trying to build out your networks and you're trying to get seen and you're trying to sort out your LinkedIn profile. Think of your LinkedIn profile as precious digital real estate. So I'll say this: you're inviting a new friend round to your house and you want to make a good impression. Do you leave the washing up out on the side? Do you make your bed unmade? There's dog food in the corner that's not been cleaned up for a little while. Or do you actually invite people in? Maybe you get some flowers. Maybe you make some home-baked bread. Maybe you get that favorite chocolate bar. Maybe it's around the time of their favorite TV show, and make sure they have a very good first impression. So what I'm saying is, with your LinkedIn profile, people are watching. And it's working for you 24/7, day and night, when you're sleeping. So when people hit your profile, if you haven't bothered to update it or to put what is a useful profile in 2024, you are potentially losing that one connection that could change your life. So having a good photo, having a good call to action on what it is that you do, having a filled out activity section, engaging with people, having all of your achievements, having something where people can actually say, wow, that's quite an impressive profile. I want to read more. I want to go and discover more about them. So I would say that's really, really important. Like, really invest the time to up your digital real estate game, digital social media real estate game, and you'll get a lot more people viewing your profile, wanting to connect with you, network with you. I'm a business partner away. I'm a law firm partner away. If there's a typo in my top bit, or if there's something that, I haven't put my best advert of myself out there, I'm missing a trick.
Yeah.
I'm leaving things on the table that I shouldn't be leaving on the table, because they'll bounce to somebody else who'll go and do the job for me because they're more hungry and prepared to put in the work.
Well, thanks so much, Rob. And where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you. It's very kind of you once again. As I say, I mentioned before, I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been a really relaxed chat, and hopefully people have got some value from today. Yeah, they can go to Robert Hanna on LinkedIn. Just type Robert Hanna, KC Partners. You'll find me there. And if you want to learn more about the Legally Speaking podcast, it's Legally Speaking Podcast. We're on Apple, Spotify, all the major platforms. And we also have our own website, legallyspeakingpodcast.com. If you'd like to apply to come on the show, hit the website and you can have a guest application there.
Law podcasts are notoriously boring. I plan to change that. I have analysed hundreds of law podcasts. I know what works, and I know why podcasts fail. If you're a senior lawyer with an engaged following and a mission, and you want to build a legacy and income streams through a top 1% podcast, then go to the description of this episode to find out how I can help you.